So here we are just learning about the JavaScript and how the JavaScript will be very useful actually when you are designing a page here, right? So you cannot work with without any JavaScript if you are designing any web page here. So now you can say very latest framework is Angular, or maybe if you are talking about React, these are nothing but your JavaScript frameworks are there. Apart from that, earlier people were not using that scripting language at the server side, but when the node has came into a picture, we are also using scripting at the server side also. But here we are discussing about actually uh, how you will use the JavaScript to build the dynamic web pages. So earlier we have seen that especially how you can use the HTML and CSS, you can design the static pages here, where you can design the fancy pages. The information will be very, you can say, static. So it will not be getting changed. It will based on some clicks, based on some actions, based on different things like that. So let me just do a recap here. So we have seen there are a different HTML elements are there, correct? If you are talking about HTML body, head, then there is a paragraph, input type, there is an image, there is a area, there is HTML, href. Maybe you can have drop downs and so many things like that, correct? And internally, there is a DOM-T is getting generated, document object model. So this DOM tree is generated and it is into an hierarchy side. So there is a root element, then there will be a child element, then there will be a child element like that. And each and every element have the certain attributes, right? Maybe you can say ID, name, value. These are something we called as a class. These are nothing but these are attributes. So using these attributes, you can fetch some information. Also using these attributes, you can also apply some CSS also. So that is we have discussed earlier. This is all about. So fundamental part we need to understand it. What is this basically an HTML types? What is a DOM tree? What is a document object model? What are the attributes like that? So when you wanted to manipulate some data or if you wanted to perform some actions, let's say if you are clicking on the button, you wanted to open a pop-up. If you wanted to, let's say, do some calculation based on the clicking on the button, right? Or let's say if you want to change some data based on some clicking on the button, or maybe if you wanted to take a mouse move or mouse over like this. So based on some event, you wanted to perform something, then how you will do it? So static pages, you won't be able to do it. So in that scenario, you need that JavaScript, correct? So JavaScript basically is helping us for all these building up dynamic pages, correct? Ideally, when you are, let's say, submitting any form, let's say you have put some particularly input data, user ID, password, name, and all these things, registration form. After that, you will do the submit. But before that, let's say wanted to do some kind of a validation checks. So how you will do it, right? Or let's say whenever you are clicking something, you will expand that one more, two more fields you can add it, or you it will be getting displayed. So like this, these things can be done or achieved through a JavaScript only. So there are many such JavaScript frameworks also. Earlier, jQuery was very popular. Before that, there was a Dojo. Many such people also, they have written own JavaScript framework for their own internal purpose. Some of the companies, they have written for that. So like this, there are many such frameworks are there. But nowadays, Angular and the React, they are basically leading into a current market. Correct. So first we need to understand what is the JavaScript. Then we will learn for a Java ES6 concept. Then also we will understand that TypeScript. And basically TypeScript is a superset. So when you compile any TypeScript, it is compiled into a JavaScript and then it will be processed here. Correct. So that is you need to understand, and that entire Java's this uh, TypeScript and Java ES6 concept is getting heavily used in when Angular also implemented. So that is all about, correct? If you wanted to start directly, this is a W3C, what we can say, online editor. It is easy to use and easy to learn. You don't need to install any editor. Otherwise, you can also run your code on Notepad++ or any other editor. VS Code is also very fine. You can use it and you can start writing. Correct? So let's say try it yourself. So just like in your CSS, here is also you can understand, correct? there is a particularly in two types of JavaScript is there. One is what we can say, you can put it into an scripting tag here into a same file. Also, you can put your entire scripting into some other file and then you can input. That is, we will discuss about it. Correct. Now, you also need to learn that there are some much more fundamental concept of a JavaScript here, right? So there is a Windows is the root object. Okay. And Windows, and after that, you will have the document. Okay. So if any point of time, right, let's say we already know that, as I already told you, there is the attribute is something we called as an ID, correct? For each and every element, you will have an ID as an attribute. After that, there is a so many element, either you are saying H2, body, HTML, paragraph, many such things like that, correct? So if you wanted to, whenever you are clicking on the button and you wanted to add any other details into this paragraph, right? So there is a two things you need to keep in mind. So what are the action on based on which action you wanted to perform which task? So there is a button, on click on the button, we wanted to perform some task. So let's say that is a one thing. Another thing is that when we click on the button, and at this moment you wanted to add some details or maybe display particular date, correct? So this date is a function is there. So whenever we wanted to fetch any ID for any particular element, so you can say document dot get element by ID. In the same way, you also have, there is another function, something we called as a document dot get element by name. So you can also get that particular element by name, right? So if you have a paragraph ID is demo, you can also have another paragraph is something what we call as
आशीष आप क्या स्क्रीन शेयर कर रहे हो क्या आपका स्क्रीन दिख नहीं रहा है
अभी कुछ भी नहीं दिख रहा है
मतलब एक स्क्रीन है गूगल गूगल का स्क्रीन जो है वो वहाँ पे स्टक हुआ है
अभी
अभी भी आप एक बार शेयरिंग ऑफ करके आओ फिर से शेयर करें हाँ अभी दिख रहा है
so any particular time is basically if you wanted to just see the details here. So if you wanted to add something, so there is a some particularly functions we need to understand. What is the Windows, what is a document like that? So I already told you what is this document object model, correct? So this document is coming from there, correct? The root is basically a Windows. If the root object is a Windows, you can say Windows dot document dot get element by I, something like that. Okay. Here you can say the demo. Here you can say, let's say, something like this, right? So as of now, you created a two paragraphs here, right? And here you can just see. So you will see this date is a function. It is just giving a today's date, correct? Now, if you here you will say company details. Click me. Document or everything in the way this is some so the date is working here very well. Now, So let's create one more button. You see, so this is the way you can also write that different functions and you can get that, correct? So I have written one more function here, right, into an add here, and this is the way you can write a simple functions, and we are calling on that what we can say on click, correct? So on click on this button, so we have created a two button. First button is if we are saying that display, and we are calling add function. So there are so many events are there, more than 16 17 types of event on mouse move, right, on mouse you can say over, then if you will say when you are typing something, inputting something, or maybe depends on that particular event, right? On click is a one of the event. So like this there are so many events are there, so these events are basically you can use it, correct? So when you are using these events, based on the event, what is the functionality you wanted to execute it? So you can also write like this. This is a simple liner code, but this is the way people generally don't use it. So you can write a simple functions and then you can just say here, if you wanted to get some pop-up here, you can also say alert. So people are using an alert here, and you can use that. Let's say, alert. You see, this alert is pop-up is coming. Okay. So like this, so this is a very simple examples you can just do and you can start with your type of code, correct? Oh, sorry, this JavaScript here. So when we are talking about this JavaScript, you need to understand that first thing is there are events, right? On which event you wanted to perform, what are the tasks you wanted to perform, what are the HTML elements, what is the document, what is the object here. So you can also use document dot get element by name. So here, let's say we are adding one more paragraph here. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Correct. So EMP details here, you can also write some much more function. Correct. So document dot element by name. So in the name, you can use that EMP details like this. Correct. We are. Correct. So alert, we are not using the alert this time. Okay. So we will create a one more button, okay, to display this detail. So here display EMP details. So like this, you can write these functions here, correct? So here you can just say EMP details. Okay. So we have two functions here, and these functions you can just use like that. So you see there are three buttons has been created, correct? So in one button, these two already we have seen it, right? With the document dot get element by ID. Now here we are saying get element by name. Okay. I guess there is some error here, right? So you can also debug it here, right? Click here and you can say more tools and developer tools, right? So here you will see also an error here. In this error, any point of time, if you wanted to debug like this, generally you can use that all these console or any other things. So you can just say, click it here, right? And more tools, developer tools. Like this, you can just debug and see that if you are putting anything on the console, so you can also see the console error and everything, right? I guess still we are not able to get it. So because here we are just using online editor, so no worries. We will put that alert. So see, is this function is getting called or not? This is
Display by detail. This is second one.
huh?
Second one now. Display employee details button.
Huh. Right. Oh, I guess that is the mistake we did it. Here we didn't close that syntax error. So this is the problem actually in Java, earlier JavaScripts. To find out this kind of things, right? If here we are doing into a online editor, that's why. Otherwise, if you do into VS Code and other things, you will see that in error into an editor as well. So that's why we are not able to. This function was not getting close, right? So the curly bracket was missing. Now you see, this is the display. So this is the display is getting called, but still document dot get element by name, this inner HTML, that still this thing is not yet executed currently. P is so function is getting called as of now, right? Only just need to see get element by name is this is working fine. This is also working fine. Okay. Now get element by name. So let me just check. Is there any problem? Document get element by name. ठीक है. So we'll just check it for document.getElement by name. There are some small mistakes. Maybe we will recover in the process. Okay. So till at that time, basically you can understand that how you can start and you can use it. Now let's go some much more details. So it is very simple to use this online editor and you can try it. Correct. So one other thing is that if you wanted to display or put any particular variable, you can just define a variable also, right? So you can use that where. So in that scenario, let's say if you are just putting here where maybe. So in JavaScript, what type of value you are assigning, based on that, it will treat that particular variable. Is this variable type of a character? Is this a string? Is this an integer or whatever it is? Let's say it's an so if you wanted to add this one, yes. So there is a two types of in we also define the variable using the let. That is also we will see what is the difference between where and let. But this is the way you can define any variable. Correct. So now display details. You see, this is a HDFC Bank plus Jigar has been displayed like this. You can also say where result is equal to while you can display the result also plus you see 15. So like that, you can also do if you wanted to any mathematical operations, divide, addition, multiplication, or anything. This is the way you can just write and you can perform some operations. So simple way, function, name of the function, curly bracket, and you can put that logic here and then you can use it. Correct. So how you will access your HTML element, you can use that document.getElement by ID as of now and fetch that element and you can add it. So if you wanted to do some calculation and display with this particular paragraph, you can do it and just give it here. So automatically it will be added here like this. Okay. Else you can also set that value here. Okay. So you can, if you wanted to set some value or if you wanted to change any other details like that, so you can also change that value for a particular element here. So you can based on that calculation and if you wanted to set the value, you can set it. So let's say form. Input type. That is equal to EMP. Value is equal to, let's say, James. So you see, this is the way you can display that initially. But when you click on this display, you can also add this, you can say, I will, so you can set and change the value of a particular input box. So then ID is simple EMP name. correct? Dot value is equal to total. Okay. You see, the value of that particular input box has been changed, right? Again, let's say correct input type first name. Here you can say last name. First, last, and name. Right? Location. Location. Let's say value is empty. Correct? Here is also you can make it. Now I'm just giving an empty value. Empty value. Right? So what we do whenever we are submitting any form, so you need to use that button titled as a submit. Right? This is the way you can say that. And when you are submitting any form, before that we wanted to do some monkey. Validate. Okay. So let's add one more function here, something we call it. Function. Correct. The same coding we can do it into a VS Code also. You can do into a Notepad plus plus also. That is completely fine. I will show you how to do it into a Notepad plus plus also. So the validate function name has to be the same. Now, here we are just doing if and so we will use that ID as a first name. And the last name. And location. Correct? So if this is the scenario, what we will do, we will say alert. These are generally nobody using the alert, because if you will see in mobile applications, nobody is using the alert. So this is just we are doing for practice purpose. Don't use the alert into your real-time applications, right? First name, last name, and location required. Right? Please provide details. You can say, sorry. These are the ways basically you can write it. Here you need to specify form action where you wanted to submit a form, but I'm just giving the details to you how you will write it. Correct? If I will click on submit, you will see first name, last name, and location required. Please fill the form. Right? So that is basically because here we are just submitting, here we are not providing anywhere this form has been submitted. Correct? Ideally, this form has been not should not be submitted here. You need to specify that returning or this validate function out. Once this empty fields, this form should not be submitted here. Correct? So James Anderson. Correct. Because this is again it is trying to submit it. Why I'm saying here you need to specify the action also where this particularly form has been submitted here, right? And where you wanted to submit these details. So these details we are not provided here. That's why it is saying giving this detail, this array. Okay. Also, here you need to just do some tuning. This form should not be submitted when you have these fields as a empty here. So that is also we will just see. But this is the way you can write some validation logic and you can try to do it. Now you also have that in HTML5, you can use that particular field as a required as a true. Okay. Like that. So this is a basic of JavaScripts, right? At least you can start and you can write some basic code.